Yay! What is up, everybody? Happy Thursday. This is a new experiment for us. We are live, and we are doing a very special Ginger Runner Live, episode number 204, featuring some pretty incredible athletes tonight. Guillaume Calmettes, Amelia Boone, and Maggie Guterl, all fresh off their Virgin BARKLEY experience. So they are, I guess, they can't be considered BARKLEY virgins anymore because they've already completed a portion of the course. So they're no longer BARKLEY. Spoilers. I already spoiled everything. Very excited about tonight's show. So if you are watching this live on Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, that means that you are a Patreon supporter. So first and foremost, we would like to thank you for supporting Ginger Runner, the channel, both Kim and myself, our films, our reviews, all of our content by being a Patreon supporter. If you are watching this after the fact, because this will go live to the world on Monday, consider joining Patreon. It helps us continue to do this week after week. You don't have to. Obviously, things like this are very special, so you're getting to watch this regardless. But you can participate with us live next time we do one of these. And if you are watching us live on Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, jump into the live chat room, which is where Kim is.
Yeah, you guys, I'm in the chat room as I would be on our normal Monday show. So if you guys have questions for our guests, please pop them in the chat room. I'll be pulling them throughout the show.
Yep. And to get to the chat room, all you have to do is just hover over the YouTube logo there, and it will pop you over to the YouTube live chat room. That's it. Let's get on with the show. Welcome, everyone, to Ginger Runner Live. Very special episode number 204, featuring 3 incredible athletes who participated in the BARKLEY Marathons this past week. And we're going to find out all about what happened out there on tonight's show. Sit back, relax. Get ready. Here we go. Ginger Runner. Yay! What is up, everybody? My name is Ethan Newberry. Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 204.
I still feel like we're stuck in the low 200s, and I thought that Monday's show was just 204, and we're still on 204, and it's kind of driving me nuts.
It's been one long episode for the last month. Very special episode tonight. We are broadcasting live on Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time because we have 3 guests who I wanted to make sure that we could get them all at the same time. This is the first time we've done anything like this, really. Just a couple of days ago, the BARKLEY Marathons took place and ended this weekend. And this year, 2018, the BARKLEY Marathons course was victorious. There were no athletes that finished the event this year, which means it was brutal. It must have been pretty damn brutal. So our 3 guests tonight all participated for their first time at the BARKLEY Marathons. They are BARKLEY Marathons virgins no more. And very excited to have Guillaume Calmettes, Amelia Boone, and Maggie Guterl on the show tonight. And we'll introduce them here in just a second. Before we do, of course, we have to thank all of our Patreon supporters for helping us continue to do this month after month, week after week. The show could not happen without them. 3 individuals in particular at the top tier Patreon support. Chris Lee from Hong Kong, he and his Trailblazer crew. They actually just screened Where Dreams Go to Die, the movie following Gary Robbins' last two attempts at the BARKLEY. They screened it in Hong Kong.
They did a really fancy job.
It
they
was
had a whole backdrop
legit.
to take photos in front of.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. They had over 500 people attend the screening. They raised over $10,000 for a local charity. It was fantastic. So Chris, big shout out to him and his whole team over there in Hong Kong, doing incredible things for the trail running community there. Brian Sands, longtime subscriber of the channel, supporter, viewer, he's probably in the chat room right now, has been running now for a couple of years, and he's on this incredible journey. He ran his first marathon last October. He's currently training for his first ultra marathon. We've been following along with that whole story week after week, so thank you, Brian, for continuing to support us. And finally, Rick Bjarnason and his team at cheekymonkeymedia.ca. They're a web design company that dabbles in all things web design, from huge scale projects to small websites like myself, gingerrunner.com. They are redoing it currently, and his team are doing an incredible job. I've been able to see some prototypes, and I can't wait to unveil it because the website needed some work. Let's be honest.
It needed a little work. I just want to make sure. Somebody in the chat room is saying my mic is dead. Is there a way to test that? Can you see that?
That your mic is dead?
Yeah, somebody said Kim's mic is dead.
Just
let me know if you guys can't hear my voice in the chat room.
That
seems to be okay, actually, but let me know.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of people commenting.
Oh, yeah, the John who said my mic was dead is giving me thumbs up now. So I may just have been a little bit far away from this mic.
I was saying that your mic sounds great.
Why, thank you.
And you're quite welcome. Okay, we've gotten all the pre-show out of the way. I can't wait to introduce our guests tonight. They are all waiting patiently in the wings of Skype off to the side of our computer monitor here. They are all individually incredible endurance athletes, ultra and beyond. We've had them on the show at some point, but this is a great time to kind of bring them all on together. Guillaume Calmettes, Amelia Boone, and Maggie Guterl all participated in their first BARKLEY this last weekend, and I can't wait to talk to them. So without further ado, here they are. Yay!
Yay!
So our live audience, or those who are watching or listening at a later date, can see your faces. Basically, it's Guillaume is over to the far side, Maggie's on the bottom, and then Amelia's on the top. So,
hell yes.
In case you guys couldn't tell who was who, that's how it plays out. So first and foremost, this was all of your first experience at the BARKLEY Marathons. Some of you have made it public that you were going to participate. Some of you didn't. What was your reasoning behind that? So Guillaume, we'll start with you. I know that you earned your spot into the BARKLEY Marathons by competing and being the sole victor at Big's Backyard Ultra. So what was that like for you?
I mean, for me, it was kind of, as soon as I won Big Backyard, it was kind of public, I guess, because Case Doon already said to everyone that I was going to be at the BARKLEY, because he asked me after the race and then he tweeted about it. So, in my case, it was fairly easy. I was in, it was public, so I didn't have anything to hide.
That's great. Maggie, what about yourself? I know that you and I have been talking about this for a long time, and you were training really hard for it, but I don't think there was much out there in the public.
I didn't put anything on like social officially. I told people in person. So I don't think it was like officially known or anything until closer to the date. Like I went out to Frozen Head and I didn't post anything from being there or anything.
Right.
Just because I don't know, I didn't want to like overstep my bounds as a BARKLEY newbie.
Sure.
And do anything, because people are very critical of everything you do, and I just didn't want to like advertise it. Plus, there's such a high rate for failure. I don't want to make a huge deal out of it and have people start speculating early about stuff. And now you see why.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's a lot of training to do under public eye, right? So like, do you post your workouts to Strava? Did you have people that maybe didn't know that you were going? Did they see the training spike on that sort of thing and ask you questions? Or did you still have to play coy?
I'm not on Strava, really. I think I accidentally figured out, I don't know, I linked to Strava somehow, and then I freaked out because like something was public, and I figured out how to make it private.
Okay.
And but I don't want anyone to see how slow I am, so I just don't do Strava.
Come on.
I went to everyone in Pennsylvania knows this like one hill at the Heiner View. It's kind of, and I was doing repeats there, so people are like, "What are you training for?" But
that's fine.
Yeah, nothing like, no official training stuff.
Now, Amelia, I'm obviously very curious about you. You have a large social following. You have a large following from the obstacle course racing side of things, and you have this incredible resume that had a lot of public appearances and stuff like that. So for you, was it more difficult to keep this private? Did you want to share it on social, or was this a really great opportunity to do something without the public knowing?
Yeah, it felt kind of like a cool secret, to be totally honest. And if people were really, really astute, they could probably figure it out. I think I dropped hints along the way. But it was really the first time where I was like, I could do this and train for me and only for me. And I kind of loved that. And it was just a very different feeling. So I was intentionally kind of vague about a lot of things. It was difficult because there was actually a big OCR race this past weekend in San Jose, and everyone's like, "Why aren't you running? Why aren't you running?" And I'm like, I got another thing going on, you know? And so I on the advice of other veterans, they like keep it close to your chest. As Maggie said, it's very something that is kind of the norm of Barkley, is that you don't go out there and be public about it. And I didn't really feel the need. And so I really just kind of enjoyed doing my thing, and a different kind of training, a lot of falling down big hills and bloody knees and things like that. So it was a fun experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I want to get to the training for sure to start before we even get into the event. But I want to remind everyone, if you are watching on Thursday at 6, we are live. So we have
there is a ton of questions. Everybody has questions.
let's get a couple of those out of the way. I have a feeling we'll probably cover a lot of what they're asking through the show. But
yeah, since we're just talking about kind of the start of the process here, Adam Duncan in the chat room asked, how many times did they apply to get into the Barkley? So have you guys been applying? I know, Guillaume, you got your entry based on bigs, but did you guys apply multiple times over the years, or was this
is this the first, or is it a multi-year thing? Guillaume, let's start with you.
It was actually my second time. I mean, last year I did apply. I didn't even make it to the wait list. And the reason Liz gave me was that I let too many Frenchmen apply before me, which was not really my fault, because they could apply before me, technically. I mean, the way the application process worked. So, I mean, I was a bit disappointed. So I was like, hey, I mean, I'll try to show my face and go to one of Laz's race. And I decided to go on big because it was an interesting concept for me. And everything went well. So, yeah, it was the second time I was applying, kind of, and it was fun.
I also realize that at any point, if there's a question with an answer that you do not feel comfortable divulging publicly, that's totally cool. And I realize that if you've applied for 6 years in a row and you don't want to mention that, don't feel obligated to do that.
I was going to say also, Guillaume, following along your race at Bigs was one of the most fun days in this house.
Yeah. I have to say, this was... I was in Toronto and then in Nashville, basically on tour while you were completing bigs.
And I was like texting you,
like, was like, oh my God, Guillaume is like at mile 200.
We were freaking out.
Freaking out. And this was really weird and unique too, because we were on tour with a movie like about the Barkley, about Gary's run at the Barkley, knowing that if you won, you were going to go to the next year's event. And we were in Nashville, and Laz joined us at that screening right after Big's Backyard. And we were talking to him like, how did Guillaume look? And, do you think he's going to do well? And Laz was just like, yeah, he's very good. he was so sleep deprived, but he like had just this genuine awe about what you did, which is pretty damn awesome.
He probably said he's very good, but he will fail like everyone else.
He is very good, but I've made sure that he will not finish. Let's get to Amelia. What about you regarding that?
I applied, probably I think it was 2013 or so. I applied wrong. And so I wasn't even on the wait list or anything like that. And then I obviously spent kind of 2 years on the injured list. So it's always been in the back of my mind. And this was the first year that I really felt, it was the first year that I could apply where I wasn't like on crutches with a broken something or another.
Right.
And so, I was, it's been on my radar for a really long time. I've had friends who, were in the original documentary and everything like that.
Sweet. What about you, Maggie?
This is my first year applying. But I mean, like Amelia, I think I waited for the year of the women so that I knew I'd get in. No.
So all 9.
Just
like,
work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was maybe like if I had applied 2 years earlier, maybe I wouldn't have got in, because I've had the information a couple years, and I knew same thing. I wasn't ready to like put that training in because I had other goals, and you can't have another goal. It has to be like Barkley. So yeah.
I know that tonight's conversation at some point we'll definitely be talking about how you mentioned the year of the woman, and we talked about this on tour during Q&As, and we talked a lot about both Gary and I have talked a lot about it, and Laz, of course. Will a woman finish the Barkley marathons or even a fun run again? And it's one of those questions we're going to get to, I promise, tonight, because we have 2 incredible female athletes on the show tonight. that have been training their ass off for this thing. So I can't wait to find out the stories. What I also want to know, you have all attempted or finished or completed these events that are some of the most difficult in the sport, whether it's ultra or obstacle or endurance or length or time. Does or did the Barkley terrify you? As a regular pedestrian runner, it terrifies me, having seen it and seen what it does to people. It's one of those events that I know I will never attempt. But for you, that's not the case. So did it scare you at any point leading up to this? Maggie, let's start with you.
Yeah, I was in a state of complete panic from like the time that I got like to the park. I mean, I had moments leading up to it in training, but once you get to the park, I mean, everything is uncertain. So when you check in, to when they put the map out, and then the amount of information you get at once that you need to absorb before you go to bed so you can get some rest for the question mark start time is like the biggest mind F that like, this is a no cursing show, right? And so
curse
like,
away,
curse.
curse away. if people have kids, if kids are watching, just know that there might
is
be
my
some
mom
swords.
a Patreon supporter yet? She's gonna die. I don't know. She'll be typing to Kim like, tell her to stop.
Clean up your mouth.
But yeah, I mean that I was prepared, like, well, I was prepared that, you know, the course is going to be hard, that it was going to be hard, but nothing can prepare you for like the initial chaos of like right before, like all that stuff you have to do. I wasn't ready for that. Like, I don't know what Amelia thought. We were kind of freaking out together, but she's a good note taker.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was a bit more calm at that point than Maggie, but like I had panic leading up to it, like going in. This is the first race, and I was trying to think back at this, where I actually thought I may go out there and die. I mean, like literally would like fear for my physical safety. Once I was there at the park and like I was more comfortable, but the thought in my mind, I'm like, you could wander around out there alone in the fog, sleep on top of a mountain. Like, I mean, it was actually something that I've had nerves going into a race, but never nerves of like actually fearing for my physical safety. And so it was like, I was telling myself, I'm like, just make it back to camp alive. And then you just make it back to camp alive.
Yeah.
And it's not been since I think the first time I ever did World's Toughest Mudder, where it was like 20 degrees outside and we were like swimming in freezing cold water, where I had that feeling. But at the same time, it also excited me because it was like a totally different kind of stress. And I kind of like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. You say fear of dying. That's my fear with this. It's like, that's because I've seen what it does to people, and we've been
not
on the
just like people, not just like an average person.
Yeah,
but like talented,
but like
capable
the best
people.
Yeah, the best on earth.
But it's actually amazing that there's still a 100% self-extraction rate.
Yeah.
And the fact that there are people like who are hypothermic at the fire tower who were able to get themselves back to camp, you know, and that's not a light little trek back to camp, you know, so.
What about you, Guillaume? Yeah, because Guillaume, like you, I feel like nothing scares you.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually very okay with it, and even more so after. So I was, of course, very intrigued by the Barkleys. You have a lot of mysteries. You don't know what it is, etc., etc. And then end of February, I went there on the park, and I've seen what it was. On the trail, I went to all the park trail, and I was like, this is beautiful, and I became very, very excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I didn't have any strangely any nerves before the race itself. I just wanted to start, and it was pure excitement. And my experience of it is that it was so much fun all along, from the start to the finish, and waiting for another year will be very long, trust me.
Yeah. See, I had the opposite reaction. I went to the park. I was at the park like 2 days after Guillaume, and I was like, holy crap, what have I gotten myself into? Because that was the first time that I actually saw the inclines and saw how steep it was. But so he's like, I'm excited. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so in over my head. But still, I loved it. Like, I mean, once the race started, it was like Guillaume said, it was so much fun.
Sure. Go ahead.
And I love hearing what you have to say, Guillaume, because during it, we kind of said, you would come out of this saying what you said, just knowing we know you a little bit personally and seeing you race, you really are one of the most positive people in this community who just seems to kind of take everything positive out of each experience. And
yeah, no spoilers intended here, but there was a point when Guillaume was the last person out there, and Twitter was worried. Twitter was like, I hope he's okay. Like, I hope he's alive, and I hope that, like, nothing bad has happened. In my mind, I'm going, that's weird that people automatically jump to that conclusion. In my mind, I'm like, Guillaume is getting extra time out there. He's getting his $1.65 worth. Like,
I was actually, it's funny because I was actually worried that the people were worrying.
Yeah.
I knew where I was, kind of. And I mean, I'll tell the story, but I spent a lot of time on that spot. But I was like, oh, if only I could just send a text and tell them, don't worry, guys, I'm okay.
Right.
But of course, you cannot. But yeah, I was actually worried for the people in camp. I didn't want them to send anyone, to rescue me or anything. So yeah, I mean,
yeah, that's Gary, who's been on the show a number of times, who we've talked about with the BARKLEY. That's one of his biggest points that he points out every year is we sit in camp and worry about his well-being. He's out there worrying about our well-being, worrying about his well-being. So like, there's almost more stress on him worrying about us worrying about him than there is actually him out there. And like, that sounds exactly what you just said, Guillaume, which I think is great. Okay, again, if you are watching live, please jump onto the YouTube live chat room by just clicking the video. Clicking the YouTube logo on the video will take you to the YouTube live chat room, unless, of course, you're watching the archive version on Monday. If you click it, it won't do anything. Because we are getting comments on the Patreon page currently, and we won't be reading those comments because we have a live chat room going, as you can see, just over there. So, Kim, let's get to some of these live questions.
So Keylime in the chat room asked, what environmental factor was the most difficult to deal with or to adjust to?
I think that's a very good question. It can be pretty broad, but Amelia, let's start with you, Amelia, regarding the environmental side of things.
I would say the mud. Which is funny, coming from a girl that, like, my background is like obstacle racing in mud, but the how slick certain portions of the course were, and up testicle and rat jaw, and I mean literally crawling on your hands and knees, and so much falling. Like, I did so much falling. I mean, a lot of people stayed on their feet, but I think that it just really slowed you down, and that was really, really tough. And I was expecting for like the brutal inclines, and I was expecting the rain, and I was expecting all that. But I wasn't expecting just a massive slick mud pit, to be honest.
Were there any parts that you were really frustrated at, that every time you'd get there, you would curse the world? Like, was there a specific difficult mud spot, or was it all muddy?
I pretty much like had a blast the entire time, but rat jaw was really bad for me. Yeah. I think that it was really, really muddy. It's, rat jaw is bad when you choose to use the briars and not like when you're like, you know what? I'm going to on the briars because the briars give me traction at least.
Wow.
So, yeah.
What about you, Maggie?
Yeah, actually.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Guillaume.
Oh, yeah. No, I was saying I actually did the same. I mean, Raja was very, very slippery. And I was like, hey, there is some vegetation on the left of the main path. And that won't slick. It was briars, but it was better than the mud itself. So I did the same, Amelia. I did the same.
Yeah.
What about you, Maggie?
I mean, I agree. I mean, the fog didn't help, but the mud was like there the whole time. And I mean, you have to go up rat jaw times no matter what direction you're going. So that was, no matter how good you felt on the climb, it was so slow because you would just dig your poles in and then walk your feet up and then get traction and do it again. It's like really slow way to go up a hill.
And it was frustrating because everyone tells you that that's like the easy portion, like Raja should be the easy portion of BARKLEY. And you're like, no, it's not. Not with the mud.
It was fun going down behind Amelia, watching her go down the hill. she spent like a good portion of that, like entire second loop on her ass. Like that was like her method of getting down.
I have like whiplash in my neck from the falling on my butt so many times.
So I like let's start talking about the event itself. So we talked about leading up to it, the nerves and that sort of thing. What is this is your first time ever really experiencing this. So what are the first few miles like for you emotionally, mentally? Are you trying to find a pace? Like, let's kind of walk through that. Amelia, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I went out. I remember when we go out and we start climbing and everyone's in this big pack. And I'm like, yeah, I can do this. I'm keeping up. We're not going that fast. Like, I was like, this is great. And we get to the top, and then, and then all of a sudden the downhill hits, and I see everyone, all the guys, Gary, Guillaume, just take off and fly. And I go, oh, okay, all right. Like, and I know, like, I was like, because as I realize now, what I have to work on is technical descending is not my strength. But so for me, it was everyone warned me that I was going to be super frantic around the first book or two. And so that just trying to not get dropped and not be by myself. And so for me, it ended up, I ended up kind of falling into natural pace with Jody Eisner and John Burton for the first loop. And that was great because Jody is fantastic and obviously is a veteran and a super nice guy. And then was able to kind of like help John and I, but actually he was like, okay, guys, are you checking your bearings like as we're going along? And so that was really great. But it was the first few miles were very, very nerve wracking because it was like, where am I going to fall into pace? Like, am I going to be completely alone out there? And then what happens if I get dropped? Like, you don't want to like stop and tie your shoe or like stop to pee because you could be by yourself. And then if you're by yourself as a virgin, you start to freak out. So there was that definite anxiety there.
I mean, I agree. The first few miles, I think, are very crucial on that race because that's where kind of the group forms by themselves. And it's not, I mean, Barkley on the first few miles is not like a normal race where you just try to set up on a rhythm and you just fall into place, right? It's kind of an interval training. Everyone rushes to the book, and then you do have a line at the book. And as soon as people tear their page, they just take off.
Right.
And if you left behind, I mean, you're doomed, especially if you're a virgin, right? So as a virgin, you have to you have to sprint to the book as soon as you see like a group and anything, and try to take your page as soon as possible, and then you sprint to the other one and you do the same. And at one point, everything will just settle down and you will find yourself in a group. But yeah, I found very interesting the way it works at the beginning of this race. It's very chaotic, and it's kind of cool. I know.
What about you, Maggie? How was that experience for you?
Stressful.
Yeah, no, it was very similar. It was total chaos. The first climb was nice and easy. I was right behind Guillaume. I was like, oh, this is awesome. But I knew it was going to get crazy as soon as the book was found. And we take off down that hill. And like, this is how serious it is. Like, I'm terrified of snakes, deathly afraid of snakes.
Mm-hmm.
And that first downhill, everyone had uncovered a poor little snake sleeping under the leaves. And we just barreled through like 40 people. And I saw it and I was like, fuck, I have to like slide through this snake. And I just went for it. And I was like, oh, I slid past the snake and I was like flying down the hill. And I'm like, this is awesome. I didn't even like, freak out for a minute. Well, like I hesitated a bit, but like that was the most amazing part. And I'm like, all right, I got this. And then, then I lost people on the climb and like, I don't know, found Johan. But I think I conquered a fear, sort of. I'm sure I'll see a snake later and like freak out. But at the Barkley, we don't have time to be afraid of snakes. Like,
you overcame your fear of snakes in the first 5 miles of the Barkley. That's amazing. That's worth it to sign. I can't swim. I have like.
Maybe you should sign up for the Barkley.
I'm going. Yeah, because apparently there was some swimming.
This year, you would have definitely gotten over that fear.
Talking with Gary after last year's event when he had to ford. It's not fjord. It's ford. But he had to ford a river towards at the end because the flash flooding and the water was ridiculous. He was describing it to me, and it sounds like within an hour, if it's raining at the top of the mountains, the rivers down below swell beyond like a ripple creek and turn into a raging wild river of destruction. It sounds crazy.
Yeah, there were like scared to go under the prison because of how I was like, somebody described as class 3 rapids under the prison. It was nutty.
Yeah. Well, there were like ravines that didn't even look the same as when we were there the first loop that had water in them. I'm like, I don't remember a creek here.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy. Yeah. It looked totally different.
Yeah. so then you're like, am I in the wrong place? Or
right.
was it just because it's been raining so much that now there's a new like river here?
Yeah.
The confluence is
I
all
was
of a
going
sudden,
to say that even more so the landscape changes because you do have new creeks forming. You know, what was before just a gully becomes a new river. And I mean, it was raining a lot.
What a unique thing to think about. And that dovetails in quite nicely to the talk of navigation. So this is something that we've talked to multiple people on the show regarding the event. Navigation isn't everyone's strong suit. Ultra runners tend to rely on flagging. In this case, you need to have the skill set. Did you train extra with navigation? Did it come in handy? Is it a necessity? Or were you able to latch on to previous barkers and learn on the fly?
It's a necessity for sure. You're going to be alone at some point.
Right.
Yeah, like if you're really lucky, you can latch on, but I wouldn't rely on that ever, because you're gonna have a low moment, and then if you don't know how to do it, you're gonna be pretty lost.
Kind of like what you were talking about, Amelia, where if you take a step off not the trail, but off the path, and have to retie your shoe, and you lose your group, so you would have to essentially navigate on your own.
Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, for me, that's, I took classes in the months leading beforehand. Like I learned how to use, I kind of knew how to use a compass, but not really. And so that was the entire, like, a new skill set for me. And it came in handy. Like John and I lost Jody around the prison. I fell in the prison and took a digger in the water and then lost him. And then so it was like, okay, now we're two virgins out here and we have a few more books on this first loop and got to go it alone. And but it was actually super empowering to me to like realize like I had all my bearings down. I had all of my compass bearings that I took like the night before, and then to rely on those and then to actually find books from that is kind of a rad feeling. I'm not gonna lie. To like do it on your own. And I know Maggie did a lot of her first loop on her own too, as well.
I mean, to be honest, the layout of the course is pretty logical, and I mean, we all know how to use a map. We all know how to use a compass. We all have kind of the same bearing. So where being a veteran is very useful is as the route choice, because you do have bad routes and good routes. And the bad route, you will find cliffs and you have to pass, I don't know, very region infested of briars. But knowing where to go, I mean, the navigation itself, it's more which route to take instead of which direction, because we all go to the same direction. We just don't take the exact same path. And the veterans, they know exactly what is a good route to go to the point. And I mean, they have a more efficient route with less obstacles. So I guess Amelia, because she's a OCR champion, she prefer like climbing cliff and stuff like that. But,
Let me take the hardest path to the top. Oh, I found. Yeah.
So what I mean is that everybody talks about the navigation, but I think, I mean, the route is logical. You basically go down and up those ridges, and it's more about trying to optimize your navigation than the navigation itself. I mean, that's my.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I imagine when you're working off a map that you have to copy off of other people and all that sort of thing, that it's you roll the dice every once in a while, pick your bearing, and hope that it's accurate. And I can imagine that's part of the fun. Again, we are live, so let's get to some of these live questions. What you got, Kim?
Yeah, great question in the chat room from our friend Caitlin Gerben.
Hey, what's up?
Caitlin asks, what was the dynamic like between the Barkley women? Did you know who else was running? Did you chat about prep in advance? Was there a sisterhood of sorts?
Is Guillaume going to answer this question?
Yes, I will.
I think, I mean, Maggie and I chatted a lot, and she was like my rock lifeline to like chat about this stuff. So thank you, Maggie. Yeah, we geeked out over it. And I think like there was a general idea of who I reached out, to Steph Case a little bit, but like it was never, since the entrance list isn't posted, you kind of have an idea, but you don't really know. And then people come and go. And I actually thought there were going to be way more women because he kept saying Year of the Woman, but there are only 9 women. And so I was expecting like 20 women.
Right.
But it was really cool. And I mean, I think that, I think that seeing everyone there and seeing such a strong contingent was really awesome.
It was nice at camp, like all the women, like crew members and wives and moms, like we were in the bathrooms and they'd be like, we're rooting for you. And I felt like it's like so much like pressure to do like really well because like they were really psyched about it. And they're like, we're so proud of you. And I'm like, I haven't even done anything yet, but thank you.
Yeah, and they were all super helpful because a lot of them too have been around forever. You know, Linda Robbins was fantastic and giving great advice, and so it's a really, really cool dynamic out there.
Yeah, and that's I'm glad that we can talk about this now. It's one of those things where Maggie, you and I have talked about this. Kim and I have talked about this regarding a woman finishing Barkley. Again, this is a guy's opinion, which it doesn't matter.
Don't matter.
But this is how I look at it. A woman is going to finish this thing, and that will mean more to the sport, I think, than any first place in all these big races that have all this acclaim. Every year
it's going to be a history making.
This is the history maker. Like, this is the one where the first female to finish Barkley, there's only the one first. There's only going to be one name that will be the first to have ever done this. In my mind, I'm like, that is it. That would be insane. And I feel like I know I'm going to be alive when it happens. I'm going to be so excited. It'll be such a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Did either of you women go into this event did you go in with that intention of, I want to be, like, is that voice in your head that I want to be the first female Barkley finisher, or is it I want to spend this year learning and then we'll see? Like, how was your approach to it?
I mean, I think there's a sense of realism where we know the chances of actually finishing on your first time are really slim.
Man or woman, yeah, of course, yes.
Yeah. Man or woman, yeah. So, I mean, but you have to have the intention of making it to 5 laps, or like, what is the point? I brought 5 loops worth of clothes and food, and I mentally prepared to be like ready to be out there for 2.5 days. But, would a fun run have been like a really great goal? Yeah. Like 4 loops, of course, but I think you had a plan for everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, my goal is to keep applying and try to do it again until I finish. I mean, maybe a woman will finish before me, but like, I want to finish. And every time, people are like, well, because there's like the whole chatter about, is it possible? It just makes me want to try harder. And I'm sure there's other women. I'm sure it's driving Amelia. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, no, absolutely. I mean, that's the entire mystique was a lot of the pool too. It's like, you want to be, of course, you want to finish this race that everyone is saying a woman can't finish. And I think that, and there's so much chatter about, and I think that actually, John Kelly made a very astute point. He's like, I'm not saying you can finish. He's like, I'm not saying you can't finish though. And he's like, and that's all that anything can ever be said of anyone at Barkley, you just don't know. And it has to be this kind of like perfect storm of confluence of like everything going right, and any one thing going wrong can derail you. But I absolutely think it's possible. And, I'm hooked as well. And so I think there's just a lot. I think we have a good idea of what it takes. It's implementing that and realizing that, and I think Laz kind of said, is that you really have to be aggressive. Like, you got to go for broke, and and realizing that you got to get that first lap done in like 9 hours under, and really just not be afraid to like crash and burn as a result, maybe.
So was this any sort of like wake up to, okay, I know, basically, did it allow you to play your cards for the future result sort of thing? You know what to expect, you know what to see, or timing wise or pacing wise. Was it a really helpful experience, or was it one of those?
Oh, I was gonna say, I think the question applies to Guillaume also.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, this one can apply.
He's sitting there so patiently.
Yeah. In this case, it's 3 individuals who have the potential to get it done and the skill set, and now they have the experience, or at least a taste of it. So we'll start with Guillaume on this one.
Yeah, I mean, pace-wise, I mean, I think we started a bit conservative. I really do think, as Amelia said, that you need to build as much cushion as you can on that first loop. because something will happen later. You know, I mean, this year with Gary and Ali, we did a flawless first loop. We didn't really push. We were having a very good time. Navigation was perfect, and we did 8 hours and 38 minutes on the first one.
Yep.
But and we thought, oh, we do have a lot of cushion, right? We did a very fast transition, 7 minutes, and then on the second loop, everything derailed, right? And it was a 15-hour loop, and it was not a big mistake. It was just small little mistakes that were adding 15 minutes there, 30 minutes there, etc., etc. So yeah, you do have, I think, to take a very risky approach at the beginning, and I think next year, if I get in, I will definitely be more aggressive on the start.
Yeah. What about you, Amelia? Just thoughts on the tool set.
I think that you kind of realize like any one thing, like we were on pace for like a 9:20 loop, I think, and then losing Jody and then realizing and not cutting like, another hour and a half. And so it is building that cushion. And for me, I think it also was I became very aware of where my strengths are and then where I really need to work. And that's exciting. And so it's kind of fun to see, okay, I have a year now, and if Laz lets me back in, like, then I can hopefully correct and remedy those weaknesses. And that's like a cool purpose to have.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. What about you, Maggie?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, I know I could shave off at least 2 hours with all the wandering around we did in the very beginning. A part of it I realized, and I think Feggy told me, or John Kelly said something about when you get with groups, if you're sure about where to go, you should just go with your instinct. But you're afraid to like separate from the group, so you're kind of torn, and there's a lot of discussion and not a lot of like going in the right direction, or people go that way and this way, and it's just like so frustrating for like no reason, right. So there's like a lot of time wasted at certain books. But luckily we saved some other groups that got there right as we found it.
Do me a solid. Thanks, guys.
I mean, that's like a large chunk of time, just like, from not even something that was like fitness wise. So, at least knowing, hopefully knowing what I know, that like, if I ever get to do another loop, that won't be so much of a time suck.
Right.
Yeah. And I definitely, like, the night after, I couldn't sleep. So I actually, like, I stayed up and I read through all of the directions and all of the instructions again. And I was like, oh, this makes so much sense now. Like, when I first read them, you're like, what?
They don't mean anything.
Like, they don't mean anything. And now that you've seen it, and so I'm like burning it into my memory while it was still fresh.
Yeah, no doubt. Again, we are live. Kim, what do we got?
Yeah, there's a question from Deb Hamberlin in the chat room. Deb asked, is this going to be everyone's A race next year if you can get in?
I mean, that's a tough question to answer, because maybe you don't want to announce that yet. And you also have to get through last to get in. Well, actually, let's save that one. That's a good, like, are you guys thinking about going back question.
I feel like we've already all
yeah,
I know.
We're just talking about this. Like,
we're
just like talking about
it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, next year doesn't necessarily, going back doesn't necessarily mean next year. If you would like to go back maybe in a couple of years, but I guess the reality is the course doesn't get more difficult. Supposedly, we don't know. None of us are inside.
It might when Guillaume finishes next year. Yeah. Then you wait 2 years, it's going to be really hard.
And then we can have a Curse Guillaume show where everyone just is like, Guillaume, for an hour. That's
it's not done yet. It's not done yet.
Yeah. It's not over until it's over.
Completely. It's taken people 9-10 years to get this thing done. Some people have yet to get it done. I have yet to put my foot on the line because I am terrified of dying out there.
I mean, to be honest, you can actually die. I really do think you can die on some of the parts, because you do have like high cliff and everything.
Oh yeah, so, high cliffs and fog at night.
Yeah.
Guillaume clearly doesn't want your competition out there.
I get it. Guillaume is I-Tanya-ing me right now. This is his Tanya.
Or he really likes you and he doesn't want you to die.
He doesn't want you to die.
I want one of my friends to finish so I can go back some year and just have them go with me and just gently hold my hand through the whole process. Like, well, here's the book. You want to get that page?
I'll be in camp drinking.
Yeah,
you have a good
exactly.
time.
But yeah, that it's important to point out. I've only seen certain sections from where media was allowed in previous years. It seems like this year, LAS is being much more open about stuff, which is interesting to be able to see so much of the course. But where I was allowed to go with my camera was a bit sketchy. There's a couple of sections where we have access, and then you stand on the edge of a cliff. And when LAS presents you during the media day of like, oh yeah, you can take photos and stuff from up here, you realize that you are standing on an 80 to 90 foot cliff that goes down into just rocks and
or like bags of garbage.
Bags of garbage.
Lots of garbage.
Lots of garbage. And you can't help but wonder, okay, I'm in the sunlight and I'm looking down and, you know, I can see the elements, but I can't imagine in fog or weather or any sort of element that would...
Sleep deprivation
at night. I mean, yeah, there's got to be some treacherous parts out there. I can't even imagine that level of safety. I want to talk about the time that it went wrong. I guess there will be a moment that you probably have in your mind where things kind of started to go south, or I guess expectations changed.
Yeah, there's a couple of people in the chat room asking, like, at what point did you realize that you weren't going to finish loop 2 in the allotted time, or you weren't going to get a fun run in? So,
Amelia, let's start with you. What was that for you?
There are a couple points. I mean, the first point was obviously was losing Jody in the first lap. We were running about, I think, like 30 minutes behind some of the lead group, and then John and I then spent like the next hour. We wasted a good hour and a half. So you're like, oh, okay, my 9.5 hour loop turned into an 11 hour loop. I have way less cushion here. And then the second time was really then going out on the second loop and then getting lost immediately in the fog and spending time around. Then we hooked up with Maggie and Ian, and then realized like the pace was starting to slow. And then when we found Jamil a bit after that, and then I don't remember when it was exactly that we realized we weren't going to hit it. It must have been like as the sun was coming up, over halfway through after the tower, after Ratjaw, but I think we realized like we're not going to hit the cutoff. And it was like, okay, but I don't think anybody questioned that we were like, no, but we're going to finish the loop, you know, like we're going to, and that was really cool. And I think at that point it was like, okay, now it's getting light again. Take notes now. Like now you can learn. Now you can see this course. Now you can like try and navigate and like really try to learn. And Jamil was fantastic with that with us as well.
Sweet. What about you, Maggie?
So, but yeah, there was definitely points where you go like, I'm fun run. Oh, good. No, yeah. So it starts to slip away.
What about you, Maggie?
Yeah, I mean, it was a roller coaster of like hopelessness in the first loop, because every time we wasted time at a book, I'm like, all right. And then I was with Nikki, who is a really experienced female barker who has done it like 5 times, but she's a slower navigator. She's dead on every time, but she's never made it 2 loops because she's too slow. But she's so accurate, and I kept trying to go ahead, and then she would catch up to me because I was just looking. I would be at a location, and then I'd asked her how long it is from here to the finish, and I realized it was going to be a 12-hour loop, and I'm like, okay, well, I know the books now. I can still like just keep chugging and maybe do this a little faster. And then on the way down back to camp, I'm like, oh my gosh, there was lightning and thunder, and it was getting really bad. And then on the way up, I'm like, all right, you know, Ian, I was talking to Ian, I realized like he's such a strong runner. I'm like, maybe we have a really good team. And then I see Amelia coming down, and she's like, oh, I don't know, we've been looking forever. And I'm like, oh no, this is not good. And then, yeah, it just took a long time, and the fog was bad. And then we ran into Jamil at a point, and I thought Jamil would take off as soon as like we kind of located the one book. But we all stayed together, and I don't know, the worst fog that I've ever experienced is on Ratjaw, when I realized like, I don't know, like if it's bad down, when we get down lower, when we're not on something like Ratjaw, that's a huge power line, how will we ever make our way like blindly in this fog? I've never seen anything like it. It was crazy.
So when did you two, Amelia and Maggie, join up? Because there was a fantastic photo. Our buddy Leon took this amazing photo of 5 of you coming across, literally touching the gate. When did you all join forces? And talk to us about this little ragtag group of badasses that formed.
It was pretty early on.
It was early on, the second loop, because John and I were up at the top at the first book on the second loop, just wandering around and not being able to see like 5 feet in front of our face. And so we pretty much did the entire second loop together. We hit Jamil, picked him up probably like, very shortly thereafter. So we had 18 hours of a Fab Five team of of this ragtag crew, but it was good. It was very reassuring to be out there with others, I think.
In my experiences, only witnessing people come to the gate with others. Those who come with others arrive as a group, or whether it's 2 to 5. Everyone seems to be in much better spirits than those who arrive as a solo. How big of a role do you think the friendship played, or the camaraderie played, in your ability to leave the event happy?
Oh, that would have been the most miserable death march of any race. If I was alone, that would have been like facing those last few climbs. Like I would have had there was no question that we were going to finish the whole loop. But I'm sure like if I was alone, like I would play over and over again in my mind, and then my stubborn legs would carry me forward somewhere, but it would have sucked. And I don't know, maybe it would have taken longer because I wandered around more. With like even Jamil didn't 100%. He doesn't like 100% know everything. He still has to think sometimes. Like, so,
Yeah, it was definitely like, I had a blast, but I think that if I was by myself, I would not have been having as much of a blast. So yeah, I agree.
What do we got, Kim?
Yeah, there's a question from Brad in the chat room. Brad asks, how much time did each of you spend alone on the course?
Good question. Guillaume, let's start with you, because I think this is actually a great transition into the conversation with you. You spent a lot of your not second loop, but third loop solo. So how did that come about?
So the first loop we linked up with, we were a big group of 5, 6. And then at the end of the loop, we were only 3, Gary, Ali, and I. Then Gary took off faster than we did a bit at the transition. So I was with Ali, and we caught up Gary in the first big descent. And we stayed all 3 until 2 books to the end of the second loop. At that point, Gary got a surge in energy, and we told him, man, you should go, because we are very tight on the cutoff. And hopefully he did. And so I was then only with Ali for the last 2 books of loop 2. And then we started loop 3 together. And then Ali
loop 2 seemed like it was a lot went wrong during loop 2. You were up against the rails with time, right?
Yeah, everything went wrong on loop 2. So loop 1 was perfect. We were maybe overconfident. I don't know. Some of the mistake we did, we knew exactly where to go. We just didn't check like the bearing before going. It's like very stupid mistake, I think, and just adds up time a lot. And that was a night where it was very foggy. It was night. You had storm. It's not an excuse. We did mistakes. I think that's totally our fault. And then so loop 3 I basically was alone for the entire loop, because Ali had to drop at the top of the first climb. Right. And I was very excited about it, because I wanted to see if I could do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually feel very alone, because there's, it's book. You go to the next book, and then you go to the next book. So mentally, it's like big backyard. It's very easy to digest. Just one more step. It's go by step. The legs were pretty shut down, but then they somehow came back to life. And until the last book of the loop, I was in great shape. I was under the fun run cutoff by 3 hours. When I reached the last book, it was 37 hours and 10 minutes. And I just had to do 2.5 miles to go back to camp. And that's where everything went wrong. And so I had all my pages. I had almost 3 hours to go back to camp to cover 2 miles. It took me 8 hours. It's a long story.
Yeah, and I think that's where I want to let's talk about it because this is one of those.
Everyone wants to hear.
Everyone wants to know the story. You don't have to worry about taking the 8 hours to explain the story. We don't need to know everything every second, but you have 2 miles left to get back to camp, and I mean, this sounds oddly familiar from last year. What happened that caused you to be out for so long?
So this is night, right? This is second night. The night had fallen since 2 hours ago, maybe, and I tear up my page. So just before tearing up my page, I climbed the what's called Jackmate Hill, which is a very steep hill, and I see 2 green eyes charging me. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to get attacked, because on loop 2 with Gary and Ali, we saw like 3 wild dogs, and like, oh, this is a wild dog again. I'm going to be attacked. And so I take my pulse as a defense position, and then this dog is coming, right? And he's like, he just wants to see me. He's like very happy to see me, like he's lost or something. I'm like, okay. And so I'm just standing in front of the Flume of Doom, which are like huge cliffs. Yeah. I'm like, okay, buddy, if you want, you can come with me. And so I take the dog with me on the Flume of Doom. I help him go up. And the dog
Wait, you helped the dog climb the Flume of Doom.
Yeah, I mean, this is. I mean, you know how the Flume of Doom is, right? So
you do know that you're trying to finish the BARKLEY.
You're like packing a dog around.
As soon as I pass the Flume of Doom, I regret it, because the dog was just in my legs, right? He was like, oh, I mean, he was against my legs. I was like, buddy, no, you're gonna do that, I will hurt you with my pole or something. I don't want to do that. I mean, anyway, I reach the book. I'm still with this dog, and this dog has a.
What bib did the dog have? What bib number was the dog?
I don't know. He has an electronic collar, you know.
Okay.
So I don't. So I scream, hey, anyone, but no one. I mean, apparently the owner of the dog was not here, and so I'm with this dog. I'm at the last book. I'm like, great, I'm going to do a fun run, and so I start to go up the last incline, and the fog's rolling again. I'm like, that's okay. It's a very straightforward ridges. And I climb with my dog on my side, and boom, I'm in front of a cliff. And I don't comprehend. I don't know why, because I haven't seen those cliffs before. So I'm like, okay, I might have taken a wrong bearing. Let's go back to the only point you know, which is a book. The book, I know the exact location on the map. I go back to the book. I take the bearing again, and I follow it again and again, and boom, a cliff again. And I do that maybe 10, 12 times. I mean, I basically did his repeats on that ridge. And I look at my watch, and I'm like, dang, so it's 37 hours, 38, 39, 40. I mean, I missed a fun run. I'm like, okay, let's just regroup and try to find another solution. So I decide to go back to the book and to wait for Gary, because in my mind, I hope Gary starts his 4th loop and he should meet me.
Yep.
And I wait there for 3-4 hours. Gary's not coming, so of course I know that. I mean, I understand that he's not coming back, right? He probably missed the cutoff or something. And so I go back to the cliff. I find an habitat where I put my space blanket and wait with my dog on my side in this weather. And the thing is, I mean, I have 2 regrets at BARKLEY. The first one is the way I handled this situation where I was lost. And the second was not to bring back the dog to camp, because it's very difficult for people to trust me. I mean, seriously, I did not hallucinate. There was this dog with me. Because the dog, I mean, I was in my space blanket sometime for like 10 minutes. He was wandering away, and then he was coming back. But he really liked me. That's the thing. Anyway, and so when the fog clears out, and when I can see that I'm just 100 yards from the path that I was looking for, the dog is not with me, but I still go to camp, right? So I did not bring back the dog to camp, but I stayed with the dog for 6 hours in the fog at the top of the mountain, the freezing mountain. And I think that was great, you know.
I am not surprised at all that Laz, I bet Laz just released dogs onto the course this year and had tracking
then
beacons.
I talked to Ed Furto, and he told me that there were actually bloodhound dogs, and they were trained to find like prisoner if they were escaping.
Oh.
But I kind of find that strange because he was very, very friendly. I'm like, if you're a dog and you want to find a prisoner, you want to attack, right? But it's like I was saving him or something, so it was kind of strange.
I can tell you that all of our live chat room right now does not believe you.
Everybody's like, was there really a dog?
I believe you.
It was a real dog. I mean, I've seen a dog and fireflies. The fireflies I'm not sure about, but the dog I'm sure about. I'm sure.
I believe you solely because you said you carried it up the flume of doom, which I'm like, I don't know what's going through your head there, but
I mean, yeah, we don't let the dog in the middle of nowhere, right?
So
this is my favorite Barkley story I've ever heard.
Mine as well. Like Gary Robbins, I love you, man, but this is great. Dogs. I have questions. First, so how did you end up actually finding your way back to camp? If you're doing repeats from the book and
so I'm doing repeats, and each time I hit the cliff because it's a fog, right? So in my head, I'm like, okay, I did the exact same mistake than Gary. I think I passed the summit of the last mountain and I didn't see it, and so I must have passed the trail. So what I was doing, and I was seeing like just 3 feet away or less than that, I was checking all the trees to see if I was seeing the blaze of the Cumberland Trail. And so I was checking all the trees, going back to the tree, looking at them, trying to find the blaze. Didn't see any. I was looking for a trail. In fact, I was just 200 yards before the trail, but I didn't know that at that point because I didn't remember those cliffs. But there I checked. So yeah, I did repeats, and there is actually just a small pass in between those cliffs, and I just wasn't able to find it in the fog.
Wow.
So,
Well,
I was actually hoping the dog knew the path, but anyway,
lead me back to camp.
When you finally find your bearing, did you just wave to the dog and then the dog stands up?
No,
and
the dog was
waves?
not there at that point. I know where he was. That's why I'm so disappointed. I'm like, people won't believe me, won't believe my story, but okay.
Zip, zoinks! It's like a Scooby-Doo tale. I'm impressed by all of your strength and stamina and ability to face something like this. Everyone has their own Barkley, whatever it might be, something that gives them that fear, that anxiety, and they want to overcome it someday. For you, it is literally the Barkley, and it's one of those races that is meant to push humans to the absolute edge of ability. And it's foiled some of our closest friends for years, and to even see people go back to try and to see what they're capable of doing is incredible. All three of you, I'm blown away by, I'm impressed by, and inspired by. Really appreciate you guys sharing some of your stories tonight. Except for the dog story. That one I don't know if it's real.
I mean,
I'm kidding.
Like, it's my favorite.
It is my favorite story too, Guillaume.
Strange stuff happens out there. I mean
also he has 2 collars. He had one electronic collars, and he had also a name tag with a phone number. And I was like, oh, if I had a camera, I could just take a picture of it and then call the owner, because I'm very worried about that dog, now. And
he's still on loop 4. He's still trying to figure it out.
I was
know.
Did the dog climb Checkmate Hill? I'm really impressed,
Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, so it was at the top of Checkmate Hill, right? So he came from the Flume of Doom, actually, but I mean, he probably didn't descend them, but I don't know. There was a dog, though.
No, I believe you. What a wonderful thing to take away from this experience too. You got to spend 6 hours with the dog,
Yes.
huddled underneath the space blanket at the foot of a cliff. Like, that's kind of cool. That's kind of legit.
Maggie, was it Titus? Did Titus get away?
Did Titus get away from camp?
No, he's not that adventurous. I was already back, so he wouldn't go looking for me.
Again, we do have lots of live questions. So this last portion of the show, I'd love to try to get through as many of these live questions as possible. So, yes. Kim, let's
if you guys have any last questions, pop them into the chat room.
We'll try to get through as many as possible here.
Great question from Marie in the chat room. Question for you all. Looking back, now that you have raced Barkley Marathon, what was your biggest misconception about this race?
That's a good question. Biggest misconception. Maggie, let's start with you.
Biggest misconception.
Or any misconception. Yeah.
Or any misconception that maybe people have a conception about it, but it's not.
Yeah, I mean, the navigation thing was big, and I mean, I think that was, I mean, that played a huge factor, and I knew that everyone kept telling you got to follow a veteran to save time, and that's sucky to have to rely on another person and go their pace. So I think it was less about like what you can do and more about like how you achieve it, kind of. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah. What about you, Amelia?
I go back and forth on this one, but I think that I realized in the training that I was like, that being a fast runner means nothing on this course. Is like that people are like, oh, if some really fast runner, like blah, 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 they could do it. But there's very little running involved in Barkley. I mean, there is, but it's a lot of hiking. And I think that, I think at some point I was like, wait, this is not, I was like, is this, Maggie put it like extreme hiking?
My mom did.
That's your mom. Yeah, your mom put it that way. But now I think I after doing it, I think I go back. I think that you do need, being a fast runner is helpful. It's just one piece of the puzzle. Mm-hmm. But I think that's, I hear people say, oh, if a super elite runner comes out there and they could totally nail it. And I'm like,
right.
No.
What about you, Guy?
I mean, that will sound douchey, but I think when I came to the event, I thought it would suck a lot. Like, it was all business and that's it. But what I found is that it's actually a very fun event, and the camaraderie of all the runners together. I mean, it's really fun. I mean, honestly, it's a big scavenger hunt, and we all have fun. And I thought we all be like, just business mode, but it's not. I mean, we smile, we have fun. So that was a big misconception. I didn't know it was as fun as it really is.
That's pretty cool. What else we
That's
got, Kim?
good.
Yeah, question from Kimasabi75. How would you have trained differently for Barkley if you had known that's what it's like?
Guillaume, let's start with you this time.
Well, I would have changed state, because California is very dry. I would have went to Oregon, maybe, where there is more mud I could train on.
Come on up to Seattle.
Yeah, come on up.
We'll show you some mud. Yeah.
No, honestly, I think my training was great. I mean, what I did was very good for what the race is. I mean, I won't change much for next year. I might do a bit more orienteering, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, training was okay.
What about you, Maggie?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Guillaume. I feel like that was the first time I kept track of vert. And I think it did pretty well. And PA has a lot of great hills for that. I think I might try to work on before leading up to it, just my speed a little bit more, because I think I went into it a little bit slower. But I think my strength and my climbing was really good. Yeah, it's just kind of a little bit more of what I did.
Nice. I think we lost Amelia. I don't know if Amelia just hung up and left.
Was it the dog story?
It was the dog story. She's like, I like dogs. Yeah, she wasn't ready for the question. I think her camera froze, and I think rather than clicking the camera, she actually hung up. So we'll try to get her back on here in a second. I realize. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, there's a question for Maggie in here. Ian in the chat room asked, Maggie, how did running the Barkley Fall Classic help with what to expect at the Barkley Marathons?
It made me delay applying for a couple years, actually. Yeah, I think it definitely helped to kind of have an idea of what Ratjaw was like, and certain parts of the course that you're not allowed to go on in a normal regular if you go to Frozen Head. That was helpful. And then just kind of piecing it all together. But people have been asking me, how does one loop of Barkley compare to Barkley Fall Classic? Mm-hmm. One loop of Barkley is way harder. It's it just is. Barkley Fall Classic is marked sort of, but you still get lost a lot. But one Barkley loop is way, way harder.
Got it.
And
ahead.
did that help you for the navigation part to know where the like main feature were
Yeah.
to have run the Barkley for Classic or not? Not at all.
What did you ask me?
Like, so you run the Barkley for Classic, right? So you knew kind of the general layout of the park. Did that help you?
Oh yeah.
So
And then I actually got a chance because like it's a 10-hour drive to Frozen Head for me, so I did get a chance to run the perimeter trails, which helped me kind of like put it all, remember it, because 2 years ago or 3 years ago is when I ran Barkley Fall Classic. It's really helpful to, you know, and it helped my mom get peace of mind that she wanted to know if I could find my way back to camp at any point in the park if I needed to, which is true. But, you know, I actually walked by Quitters Road when I was walking behind Greg Armstrong on the way, and I gave it the finger. I was like, you know, just as like symbolic, and Greg's very proper and he didn't know about that, but like.
That's great.
And you were just, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh.
Amelia's trying to call me, so I'm going to try to get her link back
Audio.
in. Yeah.
Maggie, you were just mentioning your mom. And Guillaume, your family is usually at a lot of your races. How was it for them not to be there in person for this one?
to be honest, that was hard. So there was a new rule this year for Barkley, and only 2 crew were allowed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very hard choice to tell my mom, no, I mean, basically you cannot come. I mean, yeah. I mean, she loves to be here. I mean, my family loves to be here. So, yeah, but I mean, race rule, right? So you cannot bring anyone, I mean, much of the people. And I mean, it's understandable. I mean, the place is very, very small. Even to spectate and crew is not that fun, I think, because it's a long hours of training and everything. So, yeah, it was a bit different, but I mean, they sent me messages. They were very excited. They followed on the internet. They were very proud. So
your family is
like,
very fun to be around at races.
Yeah, we love your family. The energy, it's not just Guillaume, it's his entire family that has the energy.
Yeah.
I think we have Amelia back. Amelia?
I'm back.
Okay.
Hey!
We've got audio and I think camera as well.
I had to tether to my phone because I'm using because my internet apparently decided to crap out.
It's okay. I'm so sorry. I realized as soon as you left, I was like, I bet it was a camera thing or an internet thing. So I tried to bring you back in, and then it just was like I was bringing up the list of people on the screen. I was like, yeah, we'll just get her on.
Troubleshoot. That's the great thing about Barkley people is that we like things go wrong and figure it out.
You have to solve it on the fly, and it's also what's great about doing live shows. And I don't know. It's part of the danger.
See, you're gonna be so ready for Barkley next year.
That's it. That's all it took. I can't wait. How many? Who wants to hold my hand next year? That'd be great.
Nobody.
Yeah, no one. We want them to finish before they deal with this. Okay, let's get to maybe a couple more questions with these 3 while we have them.
Yeah, interesting question from Jeff in the chat room. Jeff asks, do the 3 like that there was so much footage on the course? Do you think it takes away from the race?
I mean...
Oh, go ahead.
So, I mean, to be honest, so I've seen all the footage, like Jamil posted, for example. I don't think we see much of the course. I mean, most of it is on the marked trail of the park, and we don't see, I mean, like the very steep section of the course. I mean, even I agree we see some books location, but it could be anywhere, right? We just see a tree and a book at the bottom. The problem with that race is, I mean, there is a lot of attention to it, and people want to follow. So I think it's also good that people can see and follow along. Does that remove some of the spirit of the old school Barkley? Probably, but I think just time is evolving, and you know, I mean, ultra running was not what it is today and before, right? So things has to move, and I think Laz kind of found the right compromise between allowing some footage and preventing a mass spectator show up on that weekend. So, I mean, overall, I don't think it removed any soul of the Barkley itself. I mean, as a runner, you're disconnected anyway because you don't have any service, so you don't think about it and you don't see what's outside. So for the experience itself, it's kind of, I think, the same, just that, yeah, people can see more, and I think in a way it's a good thing.
What about you, Maggie? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Barkley was like before, and I've talked to some people that have finished before, and they say it will never be the same. But just things change. I don't know, everything goes through Laz, so he has control over what is filmed and what is out there. And, I think it's really cool. Jamil's video, that everyone got like a taste of the terrain. And again, if you can figure out the course from his video, then you deserve to be a Barkley finisher.
Exactly.
I was there, and I still don't think I can piece it together from like that,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, it's interesting as media. I was there. I was very fortunate to be there for
You were
2
there for
years
the last
as
2
media,
years.
because Laz approved us in documenting Gary's events and stuff like that. It was really interesting to be a part of the media. And again, we're doing a live show talking to people who have participated in the event, and that I'm fully aware of the irony there. My opinion is that in the 80s and 90s, when this was started, there was no social media, there was no Twitter, there was no ability to instantly share experiences or pictures or any of that. Like that infrastructure and technology just didn't exist. Now that it exists, it's inevitable that the most secret of secrets, or the Barkley, for example, will get attention. I can see that the documentary a few years ago added attention, but the attention that it got from a more general public, a lot of those people aren't caring about it. Like my parents watched that documentary, and I remember them reaching out like, "You should go run this marathon.
Yeah.
It looks crazy."
Yeah, my mom's like, "Have you guys run this one?"
I was like,
Oh.
and they were fascinated by it at that time, and now they don't really care. They don't know when it is. They don't follow suit. And I think that's a large portion of people that watch that documentary and the popularity behind it. I don't think they're hardcore followers of the event like many of us are. Yeah. That being said, I obeyed all the rules and was very respectful. This is the first that I've actually seen of on-course footage that Jamil posted. And I mean, it's great. If you haven't seen it, go to Jamil's channel. It's really fascinating because it is on-course footage. And Jamil got permission from Laz to do that. And Laz also watched it. Huh?
I think one of the things to point out is that so media was still restricted to where it normally is, like top of the tower, like the road,
Campton
things
Tower,
like that.
And the
but CNN was filming a piece, and so it was basically they had GoPro. So there are a few runners. John Burton had one, Steph Case had one of GoPros, and so that's what Jamil's footage was. So media wasn't actually out there on the course with us, just at where the checkpoints where you guys were allowed in the past. It's just that a few runners were allowed GoPros. And so, and like Maggie said, like you can't, that footage that Jamil had, that could be anywhere on the course. It doesn't give away anything,
Oh, completely. Totally. And that was, a conversation that Laz and I had when I was filming the documentary was, would a GoPro be allowed on course? And he was very trepidatious about that. With the documentary that was made many years ago, they did allow hunting cameras, motion-activated cameras to be out there. And even that was... there were some risks involved. So this was really interesting to see that this year he did allow GoPros on certain runners. As a fan of the sport and the event and those who participate in the event, I sat there and watched it with my mouth agape, thinking, my movie could have been so much better with actual race footage. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm really proud that I made a feature-length movie with 30 seconds of actual running footage in it. And I look at Jamil's thing and I'm like, this is going to be unique. This is a change in this history of this event. People are going to look at this and learn from it. So my question to you guys, because I've been wanting to ask this all night, people have watched that video and you can go look at the comments. There's a lot of people that say, "Oh, I can't wait to run Barkley someday," or it looks
easier
it
than
looks
people
easier
said
than
it
people.
was.
I think Laz
so what's your response to that?
I mean, I think Laz allowed Jamil to film it just to show people how easy it is and how bad we were on that day. No, it looks very easy when you watch the
it does actually. It doesn't do the course justice in terms of how steep and how gnarly it is.
Yep.
And so I think that's people, and then people see how slowly we're going too. I mean, they do, and they're like, "You guys are moving that fast."
Right.
We had already missed the cutoff. Like we were lollygagging at books. We were like sitting down eating sandwiches, So I think that maybe Laz sees that and is like, sweet, people think that this is like a walk in the park.
Actually, Ryan saw a comment on Reddit, Jamil's video. Then someone was like, "Oh, cool, the Barkley. I've always wanted to do that. Does anyone have Strava data of some of the runners from a loop? I want to try one of the loops one day on my own."
Oh my God.
It's like, and that is why you're not allowed to have GPS.
Right.
So that's,
or the number of people that have reached out and be like, can you tell me how to apply now? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to post it on my Instagram and respond to you. Like, if you're asking me that, then you're obviously not ready to apply, you know? Like,
if you haven't gotten it already, you three, you will, and there will be a mass influx of people asking you how to get in. Gary and John Kelly have some pretty, like John Kelly posted a web, like a blog about it, and it's a great read. I think Gary's doing the same thing, but just be prepared for that. You're going to get a lot of people that see that video and go, wow, this looks like a cakewalk. Look at them. They're just enjoying. Look how great this is. I can hike. So you're going to get people asking that sort of thing. What I loved about the first documentary was that it showed people everything about this event, the characters, the people, the community. It's beautifully done, doc. And one thing that I wanted Where Dreams Go to Die to be was to show you what it did to people. And it ruins some people and puts them to the absolute breaking point. I can't wait for you three to reach that point. I feel like a couple loops under your belt.
I want to reach that point. Yeah.
God. So I'm glad that there's still stuff coming out and things like that. Let's get to, sorry,
I was gonna say
I've been interrupting
the
you.
movie I really want to see is the one with Guillaume cuddling
And
a
the dog.
for 6 hours.
It's going to be a little cartoon. It'll be a cartoon. Barkley children's cartoon.
The children's version.
Guillaume and the dog.
Guillaume, we should talk. We should totally do that. We should do an animated movie. That would be amazing.
Oh my God.
The dog is French as well.
It has to be. The dog, whatever the dog's voice is, it's going to be great.
What was the dog's name? What was the dog's name?
Yeah, Guillaume, what did you
No, there was just the name of the owner and a phone number.
Oh.
Was it Laz?
No, it was Jerry something. I don't know.
Maybe
Let's
the
see if we
dog's
can find
name
him.
is Jerry.
And that was his number. Yeah, things happen back in the backcountry of Tennessee. We had some interesting experiences back there.
We have, yes.
Okay, so you three, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time out tonight off our regular Ginger Runner Live schedule to join us and to answer these questions. You guys have only had a number of days, probably less than that at home, maybe not even gotten all the sleep that you need and all that stuff. So I really appreciate the time that you guys took out tonight. So for those who are watching live and watch the archive or listen to the podcast, where can they find you online and follow you on social and ask you any remaining questions? Maggie, let's start with you. Where can people find you?
I'm at Magatron Runs on Instagram and Twitter. I'm not really on Twitter that much. Just Instagram.
Just Instagram. Amelia?
Instagram, ARBoone11, and Twitter, just Amelia Boone.
Guy?
G Calmettes on everything. Instagram, Twitter, and...
that wasn't taken.
Yeah.
Lucky.
My name is never taken.
Yeah.
Neither is mine.
Amelia, I feel like when I was trying to get Amelia... her Skype on here. There's like 50 up. Amelia Boones, and I'm
everyone has problems finding me on Skype, but luckily I never really use it, so
that's okay. just for tonight. Any last questions we want to get from the live
maybe we
audience?
can just do a very quick what shoes did you use?
Yeah,
because a lot of people are curious about what shoes you guys wore.
I forget if it was you, Guillaume, but someone mentioned that this race does, like, gear plays a role. Having good gear can actually help considerably. So let's do a quick gear list. Things that really, really helped. Maybe things that you could have done away with. Like, I didn't need to drag this around. But Guillaume, let's start with you. What was your gear list, including shoes?
Let me... can I answer? Because I have a fun story about my gear. But I have to prepare something. If I can
Yes, you go.
Share my screen. So
I hope it's a doggy
ladies,
baby
let's go.
Bjorn.
A
ladies,
doggy
let's
Bjorn.
go.
Maggie, let's start with you.
Number one thing that was awesome was my Lakey poles. I would have been sliding all over the place without them. I used the Ultra Timps because they had more tread and they were pretty good. I mean, in mud at a point, you're going to slide. and an ultra Wasatch jacket, and then these Patagonia Houdini pants, which are awesome.
Whoa.
Well, Guillaume is sharing his screen. Guillaume.
Whoa.
That's Guillaume's screen. What is that? Is that your shoe?
I mean,
your shoes burnt?
So I'll tell this story. So the shoes I used are my favorite shoes ever. They are called the Salomon Speed version 2.
Yeah.
And so I had only one pair because they're not released yet, or they were just released. And because I loved it so much, my crew wanted to dry them out after loop 1.
Oh no.
So they brought them. My crew are like kids, there is no parents, they do whatever. And so they brought it near the fire to dry them out, and they melted. So that's the story of my shoe.
No. That sucks.
I thought you were going to say you got struck by lightning and like that was just part of what you
So,
then,
I don't know what you did, Guillaume, but you're still sharing your screen. I think I can turn that off.
Oh wait, I think there.
Wow, I didn't realize that our guest had so much control.
Yeah, Guillaume's more tech savvy than we are.
That's crazy. Nice work, Guillaume.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry, do you want to go back to Maggie to finish?
Yeah, sorry, Maggie.
Oh yeah. Well, I got to mention the most important piece of gear was the Nathan Vapor Crar 12 liter. I jammed a lot of stuff in there because actually during the day I started feeling so hot because I think it got almost 60 degrees and I'm not used to that. And I was like, "Aren't you guys hot?" And they're like, "No." I'm like stuffing everything in my bag. This is, we had so much gear on overnight, but those were like the main things I think. Little Sunto compass thing. You can't leave home without this little guy.
Oh yeah, quality compass.
Yeah.
What about you, Amelia?
Number of things that were kind of indispensable to me. I wore the Ultimate Direction Adventure Vesta, their new one, and that worked out really well in terms of capacity. And having the pole, I thought I was going to have to unhook the poles in and out a bunch, and it was cool having them there, but I used the poles the entire race. Two things that were kind of odd is I had these gaiters from Australia called Moxie gaiters, which were padded in front. So they were almost kind of like shin guards, and they were phenomenal on like getting through briars because they were like padded on the front, and it was pretty cool.
How high did they go up? And then
also I struggle with my hands a lot. I have a history of frostbite in my fingers, so keeping them warm was key. And I had these things called bleg mitts, which are pretty much neoprene gloves that you can like peel back and peel on and off. And in the wet, they worked really well to keep the hands warm. So those were a few critical things. A Gore-Tex jacket was clutch for being out there as well in that. Next year, definitely, assuming I get back in, a waist light as along with a headlamp is something that I definitely need to add for sure for the fog.
Yeah, that's one of those.
I actually did that. So for the light, I was using the Petzl Now, which is a very, very bright lamp. Yeah. And with the fog, it was actually working better when you, put it lower on the ground. Yeah. So yeah, that definitely worked. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, gear-wise, so shoes, I was using the Speed V2 and the Speed Cross Pro. The light, the Petzl Now Plus. Then all the gear were Salomon. We had a special pack made for Jamil and I for BARKLEY with it was a very compact and a lot of capacity. It was awesome. I use a Sunto compass. Next year I might use a thumb compass also, just because when you're working with your poles, it's an easy way to check, your direction. So I'll probably add that. And that's what I use and works pretty well. And nutrition-wise, I was just shoving gel sandwiches and goo bars.
Nice. Yeah, nutrition. Did you all carry real food with you, or was it something that you supplemented with like gels, and then when you got to camp, you just gorged?
Or I can start, whatever.
No, go ahead.
Everybody told me you should use solid food, but I actually did kind of like what I do in Ultra. So a lot of gels and a lot of Goosetrope waffle, and I also had sandwiches, but mostly I was relying on like a normal Ultra food. shelves and bars.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Maggie?
I think I
Or
realized.
Amelia. Yep.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I think I realized that, especially if you don't want to get dropped, you don't really have time to stop and eat. So I
Mhm.
I did Tailwind to try and do as much liquid calories as possible, so I wouldn't have to stop. But then I also realized like you're moving at like a slower pace, so I didn't need to use like gels and stuff. So I tried to like find the most compact calorie dense things that I could do. I did a lot of nut butter packets. Surprisingly, I did not bring Pop-Tarts out there because they're too heavy. Everyone wanted to know, but like every ounce counts.
Yeah.
So I did bring moon pies out there though, and
Nice.
they were kind of disappointing. I remember at one point, Maggie, I was like, "This is very good."
You're like, this is gross.
the
Yeah,
cookie part.
apologies to Moon Pie if they're
Like, there's
watching.
nothing else.
Yeah. Sorry, Moon Pie. Moon Pie is a huge sponsor. Well, there goes that one. I'm with you. I think the cookie cake part of the moon pie is a little too dry.
Oh yeah.
Really good reaction. Maggie, what about you? What'd you do?
Well, in the beginning, yeah, because you don't have time to kind of eat. I was doing Tailwind and endurance tap, just good old Canadian maple syrup, just like Gary Robbins. And I mean, I added later on in the loop, we added food because we were walking so slow. But I found Uncrustables, like they work really awesome. Those little kids peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. They're awesome. Yeah. And then these like perfect bars that are like basically 300 something calories per bar. But they're like made of like nut butters. But I felt kind of nauseous in the beginning, so I just kind of did the liquids and stuff.
Kept it simple. That's awesome. Again, to our incredible guests for taking the time out tonight and for taking their weekend and going on an adventure. Thank you for sharing some of those stories. Guillaume, thank you for sharing the dog story. I can't wait to make an animated movie with that, with you. It'll be really fun. I can't wait to see a woman finish. It could very well be one of the two women that are on the show tonight.
Also two.
We're looking at you, Guillaume.
Guillaume, we're looking at you. And
no, I was saying all the two together.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had told Amelia, like, because we went back and forth about freaking out, and I was like, "This is how it's gonna go. We're gonna hang with till like loop 4. We're gonna use our 2 brains, and then we're gonna high five in the middle of loop 5, and we're gonna finish." And maybe one day.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't wait for that day. I really can't.
And also a huge shout out to Stephanie Case as well.
Absolutely.
Who did amazing, and the remainder of the women and everybody else who had the courage to even apply for this race, to toe the start line and to get out there.
I think getting that start line is one of the hardest things ever.
Yeah, because the amount of training that you guys have had to do and go through, just showing up injury-free has to be high on that list of successes going into the weekend, because you probably pushed your bodies harder than you've ever pushed them before. And Guillaume, I can't wait to see you get your finish, man. Yeah. I think we have 3 guests on our show that are going to finish the Barkley. It's pretty cool to think about, and I am so honored that they would even join us tonight, all 3 together too. They are no longer Barkley virgins, so it'll be really cool to follow their adventures in the coming years. Thank you to Kim, of course, for manning the chat room with you, my friends. Thank you all for watching live tonight, or if you're watching this on Monday, we appreciate the support of just watching it. And of course, if you would like to join us on Patreon, we do post shows every week. We do Ginger Runner Live. We do a post show for our Patreon supporters for as little as $1 a month, which is a fraction of a latte. You support and get all that cool bonus content on the backside. Which is backside. Why would I use that term?
Can you not say backside? That'd be great.
Yeah, sure. What am I, a grandpa? Backside. But yeah, there are some really cool perks, and it's basically at $1 a month is the bottom, and it's pretty awesome. So thank you very much for those who have already supported, and this show is for you guys. Am I forgetting anything?
There will be no Monday show.
Oh yeah, this is episode 204. This will go live to the world on Monday. So if you're watching this on Monday, hello. For Patreon people, you are getting the advanced look at this and getting to interact with our guests tonight. There will be no post show tonight because it is a Patreon only live stream until Monday. And every Monday, though, our post shows will be Patreon only, and this will be live on Monday at 6 p.m.
Yep.
I think that's it.
I think that's it also.
Okay, cool. Thank you all very much for tuning in tonight to Ginger Runner Live episode number 204 with our wonderful guests, Guillaume Calmettes, Amelia Boone, and Maggie Guterl. It was amazing to have them on the show. I can't wait to find out more stories because I bet there's a bunch. So go follow them on social media. If you have additional questions, go ask and all that good stuff. Get out there, train hard, race harder, and party the hardest.
I know I am.
Me too. See you guys next week. Bye.